Hello, welcome to the Broadview Public Library's book banter. We are going to be bantering about the book, The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner. I am Tisha, librarian at the Broadview Public Library, and joining for our book banter is
I am Yvonne.
the two librarians bantering. So let's get into it. Miss Yvonne, you have read this book most recently. Why don't you give us a brief summary about The Lost Apothecary?
Okay. Well, the apothecary is sort of like a pharmacist, I guess. And it goes back and forth between the late 1700s and present day today. How do you say that again?
Apothecary.
Apothecary. Apothecary is really carrying on the business that her mother started. Her mother started this business because back in those days, there were only male doctors, and male doctors really didn't understand or know how to treat women's problems. So she started making these potions and things for women to take to make them feel better. Now, when the story starts out, Nella, who's the lady, the apothecary now, is telling the story on how her mother started this and how she carried it on after her mother passed away. But it turned to kind of sinister afterwards. Nella started selling poisons also to women who were like wronged by men in their lives, instead of just doing what her mother did, which was basically treating women for their ailments. I want to continue to show.
You actually read the story more recently than I read the story. I read it a
So
while
how
ago.
it starts out, she tells a story about, how she started working in the business. Her mother had the business. Her mother fell ill at a young age and got sick. So after she got sick, she carried on her business. So in the midst of doing the business the way her mother did it, she meets a man named Frederick. She falls head over heels with him. She believes he is head over heels with her as well. So they begin a courtship. They begin to see each other, begin to date and everything. So through the relationship, they see each other and whatnot, and then she gets pregnant. So when she gets pregnant, he has to leave. He tells her to go out of town on business, but he's coming back. He's making all his plans with her, saying they're going to get married, take care of the baby, and all this. So he goes away. He tells her he's going to be back in a week, but he never comes back in this week that he says. He comes back later. But when he comes back, he like nothing happened. I'm still in love with you. We're still getting married and blah, blah, blah. So they spend the day together. And then after that, they go back to her place and he makes dinner for both of them. So she was very touched by this, thinking he was so loving and caring about making dinner, for them. And they're spending time making these plans to spend their lives together. So he leaves and tells her he'll be back. He had to go back out of town for some business or whatever. And she didn't think anything of it, but maybe a short time later, maybe a couple hours, she starts to feel ill. So she actually loses the baby, not thinking anything wrong other than she just lost the baby. She just thinks that just was something that's happened. But as time goes on, Frederick never comes back, and she's, wondering why he never comes back. So Frederick, when he first met her, he claimed that his sister had these ailments, like she had these really bad stomach cramps. And he asked her, was there anything she can do to give her that would make the stomach cramps go away? That she still hadn't had her monthly cycle, and that was what was causing these cramps. So she did, she made some, she gave it to him, and he said, oh, it made her feel better, she feels great, and voila. So later down the road, a woman comes into her shop, and she wants something I think she wanted something to kill her husband. And when she talked to the lady and the name she said, it rung a bell, like this is the same name he gave me, said that was his sister. She finds out Frederick was married. And the reason why she wanted to kill him, because the wife found out that he had been messing around. So despite her better judgment, and I guess because she felt all this resentment towards him anyway, she was happy to give her the poison. So this is how this side of the business started. So she makes something up, gives it to the wife, and she really got revenge for what he had done to her. So through the years, word of mouth traveled that this woman actually did these type of things. So that's how it got started. So women would come to her with whatever man in their life had caused a problem, whether it was a father, a brother, or a lover, or husband. She would make up whatever. It could be all these different kind of poisons she knew how to make, like from different herbs and rat poison and all kind of stuff. But she would make it so
It was undetectable.
right,
too.
undetectable, so they couldn't see it or smell it or taste it. So she would tell them to put it in some type of food product,
Right.
like eggs or
Right.
desserts
Be
or
very
drinks.
specific. Mhm.
Right. So the business continues, word of mouth, people come. So how they would find her would be to come to her shop, which was kind of nondescript. It was in this dark alley where nobody could find it. They would leave a letter telling them exactly what they wanted, and then they would come back later to pick it up. So one day, this young girl comes in, Eliza, who's coming to pick up something for her mistress, the lady she works for, because she wants to kill her husband. So she comes in, and Eliza is kind of thrown back because she's a child. She's like 12 years old, and she doesn't understand why the lady didn't come herself to pick it up. And she really didn't want to give it to the young girl because she thought she was too young to understand what was going on, basically. All right, Tisha.
So this is one part of the story, and like the story jumps back and forth. So current day, the story focuses on another woman. Her name is Caroline, right? Caroline comes to London, England, because she's supposed to be on a 10-year anniversary trip with her husband. I forgot her husband's name. What's her husband's name?
Oh, shoot.
I forgot her husband's name, but we will remember it later. So she is supposed to be there with her husband, but before, her husband's name is James. So before this trip, Caroline finds that James has cheated on her. And she decides to go on this anniversary trip without her husband because they paid for it, etc. So she goes on this trip and she has all kind of feelings she's getting into. So Caroline's on this trip by herself. She goes out to a bar to drink her troubles away. She encounters Archie, is that his name?
Yeah.
She encounters a mudlarking group. And if you don't know what mudlarking is, you and I both are in the same boat.
It's basically searching through mud to find artifacts. So it's just a river that runs through the fine river. And they go searching through the mud and whatever to find, artifacts from ancient days, what happened. So she's skeptical at first, but she didn't have anything else to do.
Mhm.
So she decides to go and join this mudlarking group and go searching for stuff. So she was still a little weary, so she's walking around, slushing through water and mud and whatever. She comes across this vial. It's a glass vial. She wasn't sure what it is, so she showed it to this Alf. His name is Alf.
Alf, okay, sorry.
Alf, and he told her he wasn't sure really what it was, but he gave her a name of a lady named Grayson. Green, is it Grayson?
It was basically his daughter.
His daughter. We didn't know that until she got.
She works, she's a
But
librarian.
she was a librarian at the England Library, and he said that she probably would know what this was.
Or how to research it.
All right. So she takes the vial to her and asks her to, look at it to see if there's anything, historical value or what exactly is it. So she's curious herself because she's never seen anything like it. And as they further examine it, they find it's a little etching or something on the vial. And they finally make it out and they figured out it is a sketching of a bear that had been etched into the glass. So as the story goes, they go back and forth between Nella and this late 1700s to present day about how she's trying to research and find out exactly what it's about came from. So eventually Caroline figures out that it was from the Apothecary, that it was but it was like a myth. Nobody actually believed this person or persons actually existed. It was kind of like, rumors, they whispered around about stuff. So she goes researching and try to figure out. So they go back and forth between what she finds out and what actually happened until they kind of join each other and figure out that she was actually a real person and that the things that she did.
Mhm. So the story kind of, it's telling from a perspective of Nella, who is the woman creating these poisons, so to speak, and then Caroline, who went through something similar to Nella, as in these women with these men you know, a man was cheating on her, her husband cheated on her. Nella didn't know the man was married. And it's supposed to be kind of like present day versus the past, about how women are still kind of experiencing some of the same problem. I don't know if it's a problem, but same predicament, situations.
Nothing has changed. Men still cheat on
And,
women.
you know,
They
right.
still want to get back at them in some kind of way.
So let's get into our bantering about this book. So that was just a brief summary about the book. I didn't dislike the book. I just thought that the writing was too convenient. So I would have appreciated if they had not put Caroline in the story at all. I would have just appreciated learning more about Nella in the past. So I understand what she was trying to do, but I didn't think the writing was convincing. Like, the only reason we know about Nella's story is because Caroline was researching it, and conveniently she found this apothecary that nobody had found for what, 100 years or whatever.
Like 200 years.
She conveniently went down the alley and, oh, I just happened to, but nobody else in all of London, even construction, excavation teams, buildings, nobody else discovered this apothecary, but a foreigner from a different country, didn't know her way around England at all, mind you, just happened to come upon this mysterious apothecary in this alley, and Jimmy. So, I mean, I understood what the author was trying to do by going back and forth, by trying to parallel Nella's story with Caroline's story, but I didn't think it was convincing. So I didn't appreciate, I felt like Caroline was intruding on the story to me, because I liked Nella's story, but I wanted to know more about Nella. I felt that she talked about Nella, but Nella's voice was so muted. Like, you didn't really hear Nella's voice until Eliza came into the picture, because she was telling all this to Eliza, like, you know, trying to tell her this is not, yeah, like Eliza was the one asking the questions and being nosy, like a, you know, I'm not gonna call her a busybody because she was a little kid, she was curious. You know, she was a lady's maid, or I don't know what she was.
She was a maid. She lived in a house with a lady and took care of her. She left home at an early age. Why, I don't know, to go work for this woman. So her mother took her to this place where you can go find work. So she would get off. I think her mother wanted her to get off the farm. Her mother actually was what she said. She didn't want her to have the same life, growing up on the farm, and this isn't her life. She married somebody and just lived forever. She wanted something better. So she figured if she went, you know, to work with a richer family, she had a better atmosphere. Yeah, she'd be exposed to more if she did that.
She wasn't a bachelor. Like, her mistress was very
she was very kind to her, actually,
because she knew what was going on. She knew that her husband was trying to get with this little girl, like messing with this little girl, you know, this teenager. I don't know how old she was.
Yeah, she was 12.
12. Yeah, so dirty old man was messing with this little girl, and the mistress believed him, like, okay, we got to put a stop to this. So she sent Eliza to go get the stuff, and you know, they took care of it. Eliza followed the instructions. Nella told her to put it in some eggs or something like that. Make sure.
Put in eggs so you wouldn't taste it.
Don't drop it or something.
Make something, a sauce to it, a green.
Yeah, hollandaise sauce or something. I don't know.
So he couldn't taste it.
Right, you're right. So she followed the instructions, but then she came back because she wanted to.
She came back because she was kind of curious about what Nella actually did. She wanted to learn more. She wanted to work with her actually in the shop. But Nella didn't really want that because she thought she was too young.
Nella should have followed her first mind, because
I know none of this would happen if she did.
None of this would have happened. So what happened was, this other lady, I don't know this lady's name, but this crazy lady, what was her name? Some other rich lady, I don't know her name.
Clementon or something.
Something like that. Right. Her husband. I don't know her name. Like that. I can't remember her name.
And she wanted a poison to kill. What she didn't want a poison to kill her husband. She wanted a poison to kill the mistress. And that was something Nella didn't believe in. No, Nella believed in helping women, not hurting them, but helping them by, you know, getting rid of the men in their lives. But now this woman.
Yeah, rule number 1: the poison must never be used to harm another woman.
And she was really adamant about that. But this lady threatened her, told her she did not give her this poison, she would expose her. And she wound up going to jail for what she was doing. So against her better judgment, she decided to go ahead and make this poison. So she had to go to some field to get some kind of beetles in order to roast
Yeah.
them and grind them up for this poison. So she gets all that, she brings it back, she grinds it up and she puts it in the bottle. And then the next thing you know, she gets a second thought. So she decides to throw it into the fire. She doesn't want to give it to the woman.
But the woman came.
Yeah. the
So
woman
Nella
was there.
should have followed her first thought. But again, this goes to show, like, during the time period, Nella is not she's not rich. She's a poor woman. This other lady, like you said, was married to a lord. She was rich. She had status or status, however you want to say it. So Nella she should have followed her first mind, because she said this lady was basically bullying her.
Basically.
And Nella was afraid, like you said, she was kind of not overtly, but you know, she was blackmailing her, because she was saying, if you don't do this, I'm gonna go. But then again, if you go to the authorities, how you know about me?
I don't think she thought that far.
What they gonna say? I think she did, though, because she was bluffing. She was bluffing because she knew that if she went to the police, she would be under suspicion too. Like, okay, or maybe she could have did it anonymously. Like, you never know. Like, she could have gave an anonymous tip that said, hey, there's this lady in this back alley killing people.
But
So
then again,
either way,
she had Liza there, and I don't think she wanted Liza to get in trouble.
but either way, she was this other woman was blackmailing Nella and bullying her in order to get this potion or this, to kill this lady. So I didn't appreciate that. I was like, okay, you're a woman, like Nella was saying, we're supposed to stick together. Like, I'm not going to give you this poison to hurt another lady because it wasn't her fault. Your husband, it takes two to tango. If you want to kill your husband or do something to your husband, then I'll give it to you. But you're talking about doing something to this other lady. And of course, it went terribly wrong. So Nella should have followed her first instinct and not even dealt with this crazy.
I remember Nella gave her permission. She didn't think any good would come of it anyway.
She said,
And
she should have followed her first
essentially said
mind.
it. She should have just followed her first mind. She didn't think anything good would come of it.
Because this lady was a whack job.
Ultimately, it went up terribly wrong because the wife puts the stuff in the drink, and the lady takes the glass, but then her husband and the lady run off for a rendezvous, and 10 seconds later, she's come running crying, saying he just fell on the floor. So he winds up bringing her drink, and he's the one.
So it's kind of kismet, like Nella intended the potions to be for men, but the lady didn't. So Nella kind of intended the potion to be for a man. So in a roundabout way, she made the potion for this man, but the woman intended it to kill the mistress. So, but the woman came back because it killed the husband, and she wanted some more. Did she want some more to kill, or she was blaming Nella, trying to blame Nella or something?
No, I think she was upset because now the police was questioning her.
Because the maid
his brother was a doctor. And he questioned, why did he die all of a sudden? And they was asking, like, did he drink anything? Did he eat anything? She's like, no, nothing. So the brother, I guess, got suspicious. They called the police. The police started asking questions. So she went to tell Nella to get out of town, get away, so they don't come find her, because she don't want to go to jail. She was thinking of herself. She really wasn't thinking about Nella. She could kill him. But she knew if they found Nella, that they would wind up catching her.
And also,
remember, Nella kept a registry of everybody she gave this poison to, what the poison was, what the person's name was, and what it was used for. So if they found Nella, they would ultimately come back to her. No. So she was trying to convince Nella and Eliza to get out of town, go hide, do whatever you got to do. Don't let them catch you because they're on their way here. That's what she was trying to tell
Eliza was dumb twice, because come to find out, the only reason they were able to find her, the maid said something. The maid, the lady thought, I took Crowley, I can't remember the.
See, what happened was the maid, she gave the task to her maid, told the maid to put this in this lady's drink, which the maid did. But the maid got scared. So she went to the police and gave them an imprint of this vial, which had the little bear,
which was the
be
wrong
traced back to Nella.
So Nella is the one creating the poison, but she also still has the regular apothecary. So she still maintains this apothecary store, and this side hustle that she has of creating poison is something separate. So it's behind closed doors. So like you said, it's word of mouth, but everybody knows that Nella is an apothecary. Like she has a legitimate business for helping women, you know, with regular
Ailments,
ailments and
yeah.
stuff. She still runs her mother's apothecary business.
Right, she just has some side thing that she
Right,
does
and like I
to-
said, it's word of mouth. Not everybody knows that she's the
Right.
one.
just women who have gotten that
Making
service and told other
poisons,
women,
right.
and they keep spreading the word.
And so when she has her regular business, when she's just, you know, helping somebody with labor pains or a headache or something, she uses the imprint of the bear. Those are her apothecary vials. But when she's making poisons, she uses nothing.
It's
And
just a
so
vial with nothing
it's just
on
a
it.
vial. So what happened was Nella trusted Eliza. She was like, okay, told a little girl who shouldn't have been there in the first place. Nella should have, like she said, get away. But she kept the little girl around. She told Eliza to go get a vial for this lady to put the stuff in.
Well, she did tell her.
And she didn't pay attention to the vial that she got. So later on, come to find out, Eliza gets a vial from a different location than what Nella uses for the poison. She gets the regular apothecary vial that she uses for her legitimate business. And Nella apparently didn't notice or, you know, thought, you know, I don't know, but that's what gets them in trouble, is that the maid takes this to the police and they were like, oh, this is such and such. So they knew where they was going.
All right,
Because-
but actually they couldn't, they knew somewhat where it was, but they didn't know exactly because this place was so hidden.
Right. But I mean, they knew the name, like they knew it was a,
They knew it was an apothecary who had actually given that, but they didn't
Right.
know her name. They didn't know exactly where it was. They knew the central location of where her shop was.
because if the maid hadn't said anything and they found the vial, they could have been like, oh yeah, I had a headache and I got, you know, I got some laudanum or whatever for my headache. They don't know what was in that vial until the maid opened her mouth and said, oh, my mistress told me to put this or whatever. I don't even know if she said that much, but they would have known. Somebody else could have claimed that that vial was for something else. Like, yes, I went to
But
this
actually, you don't
apothecary.
remember the lady, the vial wasn't even in the house no more, because she takes the vial back to Nella because Nella realizes what Eliza had done. That she had given the vial with the bear on it, which would be an identifying mark for her.
Right.
So she asked her to go get the vial, bring it back. And she
She does.
assumed that once she gets this vial back, that everything's fine, that nobody ever know. But the maid had already gone to the police by
Right.
that point, so it didn't matter if she got this vial back.
So, yeah, so they find this vial, they go on the hunt for Nella. And Eliza, she goes to the scene of the crime, walking, and then she happens to, for some reason, knock on the lady door in the middle with a policeman and stuff.
She
But,
wanted to find out what's going on.
So, but, oh yeah, I heard that the lady was looking for a maid, and they was like, how you know? Like, she didn't even, she put out an advertisement that quick, like the
Right,
maid,
she did, but not, she put an advertisement, she had told Nella.
but
wanted
she
to
didn't
hide
put it out, right?
Right.
But nobody else knew.
Look at her, she overheard.
And
it.
nobody knew that the maid had split, lickety split already. And that's what the policeman thought that was suspicious. Like, how you know that this lady need a maid and her maid is gone already? Nobody else know. How do you know? So again, Eliza is messing up stuff.
Yeah, because she could have just, Nella told her to go away and don't come back. And she was
Yeah,
supposed to
stay
go about her
away,
merry
yeah.
business,
But she being
poked her nose
nosy,
and trying to be curious about what was actually going on.
Nella told her multiple times, go home, you know, stay away, you know, go keep your distance. And, you know, like you said, separate, make no connection. But again, a little girl, she wasn't listening. She was being hard-headed.
Right. And then in the meantime, like I said, they go back and forth. So in the meantime, Caroline, who finds this file and investigating, she's making notes about, you know, what the lady did, the poison she used and whatever. So she somehow discovers exactly where this old apothecary's place was. It was in some dark back alley that wasn't even on the map anymore. It was so long ago. So she goes exploring. She finds the door. She actually goes in and searches, she takes pictures and all this stuff. So in the meantime, her husband, James, decides to come to London to see her because he wants to get her back. So he wants to work things out. So he comes. She doesn't really want to see him, but she sees him anyway. So while he's there, he wound up getting sick. He was going out to, he wasn't out sightseeing because she said she wanted to be alone. She said, you can stay here, but she had to have some time herself to sort things out. So he told, okay, I'm gonna go sightseeing. So 10 minutes later, he comes back in the hotel room saying he's ill. He's sweating, he's throwing up, and he's just violently ill. So earlier in the day, he was like not feeling well. She told him she had some eucalyptus, I think, oil in the bathroom. And she said whenever she's feeling down or whatever, she usually uses that. Now, she didn't tell him to drink it, but for some strange reason, he drinks it. You're supposed to rub it on, and that's how you're supposed to help you. But he drinks it, and that's what had made him sick. So the hotel calls the police and calls the ambulance because they think that Caroline has poisoned her husband. Because while they're questioning her, like, why is he sick? Is he on the floor, no half dead? They found a notebook where she was keeping all her notes, and she had just written down, arsenic and all these little things. And they're like, he's sick. She's researching for something going on. So, so in the midst of all this, they think she's trying to kill her husband, which she really wasn't. She might have wanted to, but she was not. So he's unconscious. He can't say anything. So they're interrogating her about what happened, all this type of stuff. So eventually the husband wakes up. He tells them no, he did take this stuff, but she didn't give it. He went in and took it himself. It was an accident. So eventually they say everything's fine, whatever. And then the police leave, and she decides she still wants to investigate further about what happened with this apothecary. So when we go back to Nella in the 1700s, Eliza has found the book in Nella's shop. It was something about magic, something about making spells and whatever. And Nella told her she really shouldn't be bothered with that there's no such thing as real magic, and that the real magic is what she makes her potions or whatever. That's the only thing that really works to cure things. But Eliza decides to go to this bookstore when Nella said, okay, if you're really serious about this, there's a bookstore that might sell stuff like this. And she goes to the store and she finds the book. She starts reading this book. She meets the guy who owns the store, who tells her the story of his mother, who did run these spells to help him live, because there was a spell in there to help babies get breath. So his mother did this spell. He wound up still surviving, and voila. So Eliza decides, okay, she wants the book. So instead of buying it, because she was gonna buy it, he told her, no, just keep it. I'm gonna give it to you again. So she reads through this book and she finds a spell that she thinks that can reverse everything that has happened if she makes this spell. So she rushes back to Nella's, and without Nella knowing, she is using her stuff. Nella was supposed to go out shopping, and she told her, okay, be gone when I come back. I should be gone about an hour, but you can stay here, because she said she was tired. But instead she was lying. She just wanted to get this stuff to make this little potion thing that she thought was gonna fix everything. So in the meantime, Nella is out shopping. She reads this article about the maid who had gave them the bottle and everything, and she figures out that they're after her now. So she rushes back to her shop and she finds Eliza mixing this stuff up. She said, what are you doing? And she still kind of lies. She hides it in her clothes, and she still didn't know what she had actually done. So I guess in the meantime, while she's trying to get Eliza out of there, because she's trying to tell her, no, they're coming for us. We gotta leave, gotta get here now. So they get their coats on, and as they're trying to get out the door, they're just starting to walk out, and then here come the police. They're coming down the alley. They're searching, trying to find this shop. So then they take off running, and then the police start running after them. So they keep running, till they come to this bridge. Now, Nella, before this happened, decided she was gonna kill herself, because she figured, all she had done, she was already sick herself now. She just figured it just ended, because she was just having all this stuff. So they keep running, they get to this bridge, and Eliza has this potion. So she tells Nella, let's take this, and this is gonna fix everything.
No,
so
she
just
drinks
drink it.
She drinks
So
it.
Eliza drinks her, and she gives the other one to Nella, but Nella never drinks it.
Okay.
And then Eliza decides to jump off the bridge, because Nella was going to, but then Eliza just went on, just jumped.
Right.
While Nella was standing
And
there,
everybody
like, thinking
thought,
about it. So in the meantime, Nella is like distraught, because she really did care for this girl.
But she leaves because everybody think, oh, that's the woman that's been
Right,
poisoned.
everybody thought that Eliza was the woman, because she's the one who jumped
Jumped.
off. Because when they looked around and they looked at Nella, and they're like, that couldn't have been her, because she's sick, she can hardly move. That couldn't have been her running down the street, so it had to be another girl.
Right, the little girl that just
Right.
jumped. Mhm.
Right, so Nella,
Walks
she's
away.
distraught, she walks away, she goes back to the shop. And I guess I don't know, what did she do after that? She got really deathly ill, actually. She gets really sicker than what she was. So she decides to go tell the mistress who Eliza worked for what had happened to Eliza, because he knew that, she really liked her. If she wasn't there, she'd be upset. So she decides to go to her house and let her know exactly what had happened so she would be worried. So when she goes to this house, I guess she got really, really sick. So I don't know, did she die there? I can't remember, or did she die?
I think that purposely was left because we don't know what happened to Nella until we find out.
Well, we know she died because she's talking about, she didn't think her death would end like this, but she knew it was coming because.
But she didn't die because.
Well, Nella died.
No, Nella didn't die because when you listen to Eliza's story, Eliza says that we didn't think Eliza was the one that survived.
I didn't think that she had survived
so
until the very, very end.
We find out in the end that both Eliza and Nella lived because it says that Eliza went back to the shop, married dude, saying whatever his name was, they had kids, and that Nella was like a mentor to her for many years more, many years to come, remember? So
that's right.
Neither one of them died that day.
Still covering for her to this day.
Or something like that.
Somewhere around that point.
Right, but neither one of them died just yet.
Right.
They're still alive. And so, so meanwhile, Caroline is being investigated by the police, being asked all these questions about, her husband, James. And so when she says, yeah, go in there, use this eucalyptus oil, Caroline doesn't intentionally say, you're supposed to drink it. She just says, I use this. However, they've been married for 10 years. 10 years. And if she uses that on a regular basis, her husband should know. So yeah, I don't understand. Yeah, they found this book, but why would you think?
Wait, you know what? Actually, it was intentional, remember? I remember in the story, he did this intentionally.
Yeah.
He wanted her to take him back.
But they're making it seem like she's to blame.
Yeah, but she finally gets out of him that he did this intentionally, got sick and all that, to try to make her feel, I guess, sorry for her and come back to him. And when she finds this out, she decides, well, this is really. Right.
She had already been going through like all these feelings and emotions. Like when she got there, like saying, what would my life have been like if I had stayed in London and went to Cambridge? Like,
because her idea was to become a scholar. She wanted to be a historian.
She wanted to go to graduate school.
Right, but he talked her out of it, saying it was safer for them to just have a single life.
And then the same thing with kids, like that Nella and Caroline have in common as children. Like Caroline wanted to be a mom, but I don't know if they were trying or what, but she wasn't a mom
yet.
They were
going to start trying.
She wants vacation, to be a mom.
She thought that she would get pregnant.
Trying, And Nella lost the baby. Right. So Caroline wanted a baby, wanted her and James to start trying to get, and Nella lost the baby. So that common thread of like motherhood, that Caroline didn't have a baby yet, Nella lost the baby.
And they also both had men who did them wrong.
They had what?
Men who did them wrong, because her husband was cheating on her. Right. Nella's boyfriend was cheating on her.
Well,
his wife.
Right.
Yeah, and then Caroline thinks that she might be pregnant for all this. Because she's nauseous and whatever. And at the end, she found out she really is pregnant. Right. She would just leave, everything's fine. Mm-hmm. So that made her like push forward to do what she wanted to do out of life in the first place. She decided to go back to school.
Right. So
filed for separation from James. Because she told him she didn't want to be bothered with him no more.
After intentionally, like you put me through this when you knew you intentionally, because he thought, like you said, that it would garner her sympathy, and she. When she found out.
When she did, because when she thought he was dying, she was like distraught. She was like, oh my God, I'm gonna lose him.
But once she found out, like, why would I take you back? Like, you lied twice.
I didn't lie about, no, I'm done.
Right, you cheated, you lied then, but when I asked you about it, and now you lying again. And so it's like, so I don't and then Caroline made a friend with the librarian lady. Their name Gaynor. Gaynor. Yeah, Gaynor came to the hospital. So I don't know. I thought, what'd you think of Eliza's story? Like Eliza.
I think they could have maybe little bit more about Eliza, because we really didn't know much about her other than she lived with her mother, came to work for this woman, and that was pretty much all we knew.
See, I didn't really care about Eliza or Caroline, to be honest.
Eliza. She was
annoying.
She was annoying.
She was
12.
innocent. She caused all this drama. It's
But
straight.
she was 12, she was a child.
My
We know
point
her better.
exactly. She didn't nearly got Nella killed
Yeah, well, see, Nella was sympathetic.
because she had lost
her
a child.
daughter.
That's what I said. So she was saying if my daughter had lived or
She-
child, she would have been 20 something. But
And also she thought she would be with her work like she did with her mom. Because when she was younger, her mom taught her.
right, because she didn't have
How to do
anybody.
this.
So that's what Nella was saying. Once I die, this
That's
goes
just
with
it,
me.
because she
She
don't
doesn't
have
have
anybody.
anybody.
To do this to.
So right, she
So
thought
she
that
assumed that she kind of
she saw a
that
kindred
into
spirit.
Liza, right?
And Liza, like, okay, this could be the little girl I never
Right.
had,
Right.
but that little girl was hard-headed and bad, and she
Right.
caused Nella, which probably a real child would do.
Right.
So-
So she was a child. She didn't know better.
But I don't know, like, I wanted to know more about Nella. Like, I felt Nella didn't say enough. Like, she was kind of like this, I don't know what she looked like, but when I was listening to the story, I got this idea that because Nella had been done wrong, she was like this homely woman, which I'm sure she wasn't.
Kind of like a woman who's pretty, but
She gave
without
up.
makeup or whatever.
Right, but the
decides
idea
to-
of, like you said,
But she was sick. Remember, she had some ailment that
but
crippled her.
But that's
hands
what I'm
and-
saying, like, because she did, but even though she was sick, she was sick because I felt like she gave up, like, after Frederick did her wrong, after she lost her child, it's like, you can't know what she's going through or the heartache she feels, and, but I felt like Nella gave up, like, her voice was so muted, like, she was doing this because she didn't have any other options, like, of what to do, because she lost her child. She knew she was never gonna get married or meet another man, because she wasn't trying to. Not that she should. I'm
And
just
then
saying,
also, I
like,
think she harbored resentment towards me because she was only too willing after that first time to keep doing this.
right,
And that gave her, I guess, a purpose, actually.
knowing
Knowing
that
that she can help other women,
like she got her revenge, and
that
knowing
get
that.
theirs, that type
right.
of thing, right?
But I felt like, so I guess, like I said, she was lonely, maybe.
Yeah, I think she was lonely.
Because when Eliza came, like you said, she told the little girl like 3 or 4 times to go and get. And the little girl still coming
Still
back,
come back,
bothering.
yeah.
And like you said, Nella didn't really mean it. So she let the little girl spend the night, even though the little girl done messed up, caused this, doing this. She was still, like you said,
Right, and she even at the end,
lonely.
when they was on the bridge, I mean, they hugged, and that she was telling her to go, she was telling her to run, because she was just gonna jump, she wanted her to go away, so she wouldn't get caught, and she was just gonna jump off the bridge, but then Eliza, before she knew it, she had ran and just leaped off the bridge. She's like, what the heck?
Yeah, that little girl was bad, but
It's crazy.
so like I said, there was a bond. I think that like I said, Eliza kept coming back for a reason. It might have been she wanted to learn, but also Nella, like she was intrigued by Nella, like you said, like there's this woman. She kind of felt like she didn't have anyone, and Eliza probably felt like, okay,
Well, Eliza
I didn't
did
have
have one. Her
anyone.
mother was
To some
living on
extent,
farm,
and-
and she only person that she knew was the mistress she worked for.
And then, like I said, the mistress's husband was, bothering her, but he was
Right.
gone. So I guess, like I said, there was some kind of bond, unspoken bond between
I
them
think
that
so.
kept drawing, Eliza back to Nella. Like,
And I think Nella,
And Nella
even though
keep-
she was pushing her away, I don't think she really wanted to push her away.
right,
She just didn't want her involved in that side of that business, because she
Mm-hmm.
thought she was too young to, like what she said, carry around the demons of what,
Mm-hmm.
she had to carry around inside of her
Right.
all these years, all the things she had done.
and I think, like you said, if she had had a daughter, that would have never been
No, because her daughter would
Aside.
have been the one who would have been there, would have been helping her.
right, and she
Yeah.
would have.
And she may not even done the poison.
But
thing.
that's what I said, if she had had
would
her
have kept
daughter,
her mom.
had her child,
Right.
Nella wouldn't have even been doing poison. She would have carried on the business as her mother
Her
did,
mother.
and been teaching her daughter to carry on the business, etc. So, like you said, she didn't want Eliza involved in that. She might have wanted to teach Eliza the legit part of it, that, okay, but these poisons, no.
No.
But that's what Eliza was most intrigued by.
She was intrigued by what,
Mm,
the things that she used to make up these things, and how she
the
kind of
magic,
disguised
the
them
tinctures,
into
mhm.
poisons you couldn't tell it was poisons.
To look like, so.
Yeah.
So I don't know, so I thought that the story, I like the way it unfolded to some extent. Like I said, I didn't really care for Caroline. Like, I don't think that Caroline helped the story any, because I would have
I
liked.
don't think they actually needed her in the story
I
for the
don't
story to
think so.
carry through, because it basically just was trying to tell two stories.
But connect them, like I
But
said, it was
connect
trying
them.
to unravel Nella's story
Right.
instead of
They
just
could've
telling us Nella's story.
Unraveled Nella's story without
Caroline, that's
They
what I
could've-
felt. I
it was
would have
like a
wanted
character
more
that
Nella's
didn't
story.
have to be there,
Right.
basically.
I didn't
But
think Caroline's story was that interesting. Like, I kind of thought it was unconvincing. Like, like I wanted to know more about Nella. Like, I would have liked it to stay in the 18th century
Yeah, that might have been
and
interesting.
talk more about Nella and, you know,
In present day
more
Carolina.
about the crazy lady and the mistress, and see how it really unraveled, like clearly not by speculation,
Right.
like the author did. Like, we find out later that they lived, but you had to speculate until you find out, like, okay,
Right,
what
because
really
up until
happened.
the last few pages, I assume Eliza had actually died.
Right. And
Because she
we don't
jumped
know
off
what
the bridge,
happened
they
to
like,
Nella.
nobody could have survived that jump. But
Right.
whatever she cooked up in that bottle, I
Right.
guess helped her come out of there.
So that's what I said.
live her life.
So what happened to Eliza? Like, yeah, they got married, but is she a witch? Like, what is she?
She
I'm just
actually
saying,
just
like,
kept-
she's
Remember,
doing these
I think
spells
that-
and
I
sorcery
think- did her
books.
husband die? I think her husband died.
Who?
Eliza, because she was
She
working in
came
the
back
shop.
for that book.
Yeah,
and
but they
married
got
the dude.
married. I
Had some
think
kids.
he died, and she
know.
still took care of the shop, like whatever, it was a book shop, they sold all
Right.
kinds of books. So
They
she
showed
still
those
worked
magic
there.
books that she liked.
Right.
Uh-huh.
So
That's
she
what I'm
still
saying.
did
Like,
that.
I would have liked to find out more. Okay, Eliza, this worked. Eliza, what did you do? Like,
That would have been interesting, like.
you
what-
all of a sudden you knew Nella for 3 days, and now you know how to make potions.
Yeah, but she read the book and learned how to.
Like,
Mix
okay,
it up.
that's what I'm saying. So I would have
Just for being with
appreciated.
Nella for a few days.
Right.
and
I would have
watching her.
appreciated if it stayed in the 18th century and went through, you know, okay, Eliza survived. And I would have wanted to hear about what's she doing. Is she mixing things? Like, is she selling magic potions? Like, what is she
I don't know,
doing?
they never go into that.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, they
Other
could have
than
left
she
out
just-
Caroline's. I would have rather them had a resolution with Nella and Eliza versus Caroline. I felt like Caroline's story was resolved, but Nella's and Eliza's was left to speculation.
Yeah.
Like,
that's
it
the
was
wonder, like,
gaps.
what-
Yeah, they told you, the author told you what happened later, but she left the gap.
Like what happened
And
between the end and.
Eliza got
Sure.
married all of a sudden. How far in the future was that?
I don't know.
Like, she survived. Where
Well,
she
it couldn't
washed
have
up
been too
at?
much for her. She was 12, and she was still in childbearing age. You'd assume this happened maybe 10
But that's what I'm saying.
years
Like,
into the future, maybe 10, 15 years
they
tops.
could have, the author could have went in, yeah, Eliza jumped, and then next chapter, Eliza washed up on shore, or Eliza,
Yeah, no, they
something.
don't take that. They kind of leave
Like
you
I
hanging with
said,
that to think about.
And then, like I said, next thing you know, she alive, she married with kids, but you don't know, like you said, I guess you said it's left to speculate, was it really magic? Did this tincture to reverse bad fortune and whatever,
Really
she
worked?
great, did it really work?
Or
Or
was she just lucky?
was she a good swimmer? You know, did a dolphin, I don't know,
I don't
something,
know. They didn't say that.
you know, did a tugboat come, something, you know, somebody pull it out the water, but they resolved Caroline's story, which they could have left out, because that her husband was a fool, that was unnecessary. Like, I didn't really see the point of, like, who would do that? Like, you would kill yourself, you dead, if you, I think he took just enough so he wouldn't die,
I
that
don't
he
think
would get
was gonna
sick.
He just wanted to get sick.
Right.
enough so she would-
But that's what I'm saying, like,
I can't
they've
say.
been married for 10 years. He knew he wasn't supposed to drink that if his wife uses
I'm
it
quite
topically.
sure because on the bottle it says something about poison or something. I mean, the-
Right,
who
do
would just go in the
not
bathroom
do
and
not
drink something?
ingest, do not
Right.
ingest, right?
Nobody
Why
would
would
do
you,
that.
why would you ingest an essential oil, period? Like,
Right.
like I said, they've been married for 10 years. He know that he's not supposed to drink that. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I think he said he took just enough so he would get sick, but he wouldn't
Right,
die.
because he didn't drink the whole bottle, remember?
Right, he wouldn't
He
actually
took
die.
Just enough.
It's like, who does that? So I feel like Caroline's story was resolved. You know, she made her decision. Deuces, James, I'm leaving you. I'm gonna stay here and go to grad school, apply, live my life. And
Right.
James went back to whatever he was
He went
doing.
back to the States and continued.
I don't know.
Who knows?
And,
Went back to the district. I don't know.
I don't know,
But
so-
even though the Caroline story, I liked the book. I thought it was good. I thought even with going back and forth, I didn't get confused in the story.
You're right, I didn't get confused.
She did a good job with telling both stories
Mhm.
simultaneously. She really did, because each chapter was about one thing. It wasn't a chapter that went back and forth between the two dates. So that was good. So I advise you to read it because it was enjoyable. I mean, after while you're reading it, you really want to know what's going on, what's happening. So you kind of keep turning those pages, trying to figure out what's going on.
Yeah,
It's a really easy read because once you start reading it, you can't wait to the next page and say, what happened?
Yeah, and the characters are like, the majority of the characters are women. You get James in this juxtaposition role, like you said. Nella is helping women get rid of men like James in the 18th century London, and present day Caroline is
trying to basically
unraveling this story of Nella and what she was doing, like getting rid of, helping to rid women of villainous, that they call it villainous men. But they were just being men. They were being men because back in the day, like you said, without a man, a woman didn't have anything.
No, I mean, they provided, where they, house, money, prestige, and whatever else. But if you didn't get married, then
right, like you said, Nella had to do what she had to do just to survive because she was unmarried.
Right.
And even if she had had that child,
she went sort of kind of the same path because she took the job on her parents' farm because he was saying, okay, well, that'd be a more stable job for our future because we want to, have kids one day. And if you go off to school, because remember he was asking, how you gonna get a job with the degree you have? Because when she went to school, she really wasn't kind of serious about it. She was reading books or something.
But that's what she wanted to do.
The right kind of history she should have had to get a professor job because she tried and nobody wanted to hire her. So that's why she wound up taking that job. But then she was dissatisfied. She did not.
Right. Later on, she was realizing all the kind of off things that James was saying to make it seem like, okay, my career, I have this accounting job. This is definitely this is stable. I'm gonna get a job. I have an accounting degree. But what you want to do is it's like
and also remember he also himself was saying after 10 years, he wasn't satisfied with their relationship. Like they were happy with their day-to-day lives, but the reason why he claimed he started this affair because he was, I don't know, bored or whatever with how their lives, because it was just like every day we do this, we do that, but nothing else.
So they're supposed to be trying for a kid.
Yeah.
So
it's a good thing she didn't get pregnant, because like she said, she had
this baby, right?
And now we're on the verge of getting divorced, and I'm pregnant.
And you see that thing too, like with Nella, unfortunately Nella lost her baby because James didn't want her to have the baby. So you see these, Caroline is relieved she's not pregnant, but Nella is devastated that she lost her baby. So even if it felt like, even if Nella didn't have Frederick, she would have still been able to, she would have still wanted this child.
She would have, I think she would definitely want the child.
But she didn't know she wasn't gonna have Frederick. She didn't know.
Oh, she assumed her life was gonna be rosy. But they probably moving away and take care of her and the baby. They're gonna have this.
Or they were gonna get married and stuff, and
he turned out to be
married. He was already married. He couldn't marry her.
He had no intention on marrying. He was upset she didn't get pregnant, which is why he went to dinner. No, remember
she wanted the baby.
But he did. Remember, he made the dinner and he put something in.
Right. But she didn't know that. She thought that he played his role. She didn't know that when Frederick found out she was pregnant, he didn't say otherwise. He seemed like he was happy, but
he was playing her along.
She let her guard down. Like I said, she fell for it and didn't know because she was so happy. Like I said, when you fall in love, the heart wants what it wants. So, she had no clue that she was being played by this man until she was played. And like, what a terrible, devastating thing to do is to kill your child.
Kill my baby. And then leave me too. Like, you just left. You said, I'm married, I can't have no kids.
Don't even say, like you said, just leave. Don't ever come again.
Whatever, but he came back. Which I don't understand why
he came back to get rid of the baby.
Yeah,
because probably in the future we say, oh, this is your child or something.
Like, I can't have this.
But again, there was no way to prove it, like to say, but like you said, you take somebody's word for it, like, oh, this is your baby. You better take care of it.
Probably would have believed what she did because she knew that he was
stepping out. So, and that's probably not the first time he's done it.
No, I'm thinking he must have done this before. Couldn't have just been that one.
That's why Nella was saying, like, I encountered a Frederick, and for all the other women that have Fredericks in their lives. You know, I'm gonna help y'all out. I'm gonna.
But she did.
And she did until Eliza came along, and the old crazy lady.
Yeah.
But yeah, and the maid. So yeah, because if Eliza hadn't come along and ruined it, Nella probably would have still been dispensing poisons. But she had so carefully laid out her business, like she so carefully did it. Put the letter in the wheelbarrow and bury it or whatever.
And then she
had it.
Her poison stuff was in its back false wall.
Right.
And nobody's, if you walked in, you didn't know.
Exactly. Like I said, she had her shop. Right.
The front was just the front of the shop, and the back was where she did her thing.
So all the years that she had done this just unraveled like that. It felt like because of this little girl. Like she so carefully cultivated and kept everything hidden and kept everything organized and made sure, and boom, this little weird girl come along and just ruined it all. Just ruined it. So, but it was, yeah, I don't know, like talking now, like initially when I read the book, I was disappointed by it. I was like, okay, the book got so much hype, and you know, and it's not a bad book. It's not, because I didn't dislike the book. I was disappointed a little by the book when I initially read it. But now that we're bantering about it and talking about it,
kind of a fascinating story.
I can see its merit. Yeah, like, you know, like the way you're talking about Caroline and Eliza, and because I was like, I don't care about Caroline. Like Eliza got on my nerves. She ruined everything. Like I blamed Eliza because I wanted.
Well, you know what they say, eventually everything comes to the light. So one of these days it was bound to happen. Somebody's gonna tell something.
Well, Nella, I guess, intended, like she said, she was the only voice that these women had keeping this ledger, and she wouldn't have had anybody to pass that on to. It would have died with her, but by keeping this ledger, but
and the ledger survived for 200 years hidden in that room.
Which
Caroline
again,
found it.
I don't get, but okay.
Well, because she said if she didn't keep the ledger, then these women's history would be gone.
But I mean, all of a
would
sudden,
ever
Caroline found it, like nobody else found this in all this time in London. Like I said, a
Well,
foreigner from a different country came, don't know her way around.
Everybody else got as curious as she was.
And all of a sudden, she breaking and entering into a old dusty room.
Well, it was in a back alley, so nobody knew it was there. Remember, it was like covered in bushes, and it was like so hidden you wouldn't find that you could go and look for something.
I guess.
Yeah, you'd have to literally be looking for it, and she was looking for it. That's why she.
I guess. Like I said,
that. Remember, she was reading the maps, and she was
convinced.
studying them, and she was hell-bound to find this place.
I guess I wasn't.
Nobody else really gave up who was 200 years ago.
Yeah. But yeah, so now that we're talking about it, and like I said, I didn't think it was a bad story. I thought Nella's story was super interesting. I wanted to know more about Nella. Like,
it'd be nice if they did a second one, kind of clue you in on what happened to Nella. I mean, between the time,
Eliza and stick to Eliza and Nella. Yeah,
like what happened in those years?
Right.
What were they doing?
What was Eliza doing? How did she survive?
Her business as normal?
Well, how did she make a life? Like I said, if now that they know that this apothecary,
so and
if
was
they
she
was the
still
wanted women,
poisons to needy women?
But it's said what happened. It's like you said,
they go back to just doing what her mother did.
What happened with the rich lady? I don't know.
She
her
died.
name.
Remember Caroline, when they were searching for this apothecary, they came across a letter.
Oh, in the
a deathbed letter.
Yeah.
That was written by a patient from a hospital, and it was the lady who had written the letter, and she was telling what she had done.
I remember.
I guess she was feeling guilty. She wanted to get over chest before she passed away.
I remember.
So she died in the hospital, but she did get a chance to get.
But she lived. She never went to jail.
No, she never went to jail.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
she died in the hospital. I don't know
what happened, but all the other cases came out, so they never said. So remember when it was in the paper, and all these other people started coming forward. Like
suspicious deaths.
Like
somebody died.
My uncle passed away, or you know, dude was like, my brother.
Right. It was kind of like
was
when
fine.
You discover, you know, a serial killer was around, and all of a sudden,
you
find all the other bodies.
Right. He was healthy one day, and next day he got violently sick and he died. So, like you said, all these other people started coming forward. So it's like she was under suspicion. But because they thought she had killed herself, they just, okay, it's done, it's over, she dead.
Right. And they never knew who Nella was in the first place. They didn't know where her shop was. So
Right, they only had space, they didn't know her
Yeah.
name, and because Elijah jumped, they
They
thought
assumed that
that,
she was the one who was doing that. She
Right.
was dead. Remember, he said the case is closed.
right,
was
she
dead.
did, she died.
Right, and that's
But-
what they put in the newspaper, that she
Right.
had killed herself.
Right, even though they ain't find nobody.
Right, so
They
the case
looked-
was closed.
Right, so they was like, oh, well, she died, she killed herself, she jumped off the bridge, in the story. So I guess, like you said, Nella got to live her life speculation free, wasn't nobody looking for her because they thought that whoever did all these poisoning was dead. She killed herself, she jumped off the bridge into freezing cold water.
Yeah.
And was dead. So I guess that's the end of it.
So it wasn't, I mean, I really liked the book. Like I said, when I started reading it, I couldn't put it down. Once I got past the first few pages, I mean, it was like, I was just reading 100 pages at a time. I was just staying going. That's all I was doing. Because I was just so enthralled into this story, and I just wanted to find out what happened next. What's going on? What's happening?
Like I said, the story was so easy to read.
Yeah.
But like me, something like really, Caroline, like just, you know how when you watch a movie.
Yeah, me, Caroline was the annoying person, really.
I mean, she wouldn't know. I mean, I get her thing. I get
that, but just leave it there. The man cheated, leave him, move on.
Right. You cheated, but it's kind of like we said, like when you see a scary movie and you talk, like, don't go in there. Like, why would you do that? I felt like that for Caroline, but like Caroline, you know he cheated.
Right.
Like Caroline. Why are you busting yourself over this? The dude cheated, then he just lied to you. Right.
He did. You didn't do nothing wrong.
Right. Don't let these police bully you. You know you ain't.
I mean, you plan this
wonderful
romantic trip for y'all to take, and then right before the trip, you find this out. Like, I'd be happy.
Right. I was doing the same thing with Nella, with Eliza. I'm like, Nella, you done told the girl to go away. Eliza, gone somewhere. Get. Like, why is you going to this lady's house with the police standing by the door in line?
That was crazy.
Like now they right. You tell them. So it was kind of like for me, like some parts of the book, like, you know, I was watching the movie and I was the one yelling at the movie screen, like.
And it's like when you read this story, you can kind of picture the people for some reason. I don't know. You kind of got this vivid thing in your mind,
right?
1700s, and you know what they was wearing. This young girl and Nella. You kind of just.
Right, she did do a good job. Yeah, she did a good job of like making these characters come to life.
Right.
Right. Sometimes you read a book and you don't really get that sense, but
you kind of have to read a couple of times. Like,
I kind of got
this.
Yeah,
you got totally immersed into this story. You really did.
I felt like you said, I felt like I was watching a movie. Like
that's
I said, when I was reading this
really
book.
how it felt. Like you watching one of these old movies,
and you can see the character. You know, you read
you can
it.
see
You
like
can see
Caroline in this old place. It's dark and
room.
She's walking around. And,
you can see Nella in this room. You can, like you said, picture what she's wearing, like an old black dress. Picture them running on the bridge. Like, I felt like I was watching the movie when I was reading because I could picture everything in my head, like the Victorian houses and. You know, I could picture Eliza scrambling those eggs or putting that poison. I could like see it in my head. So she did I thought the writing, she did a good job of writing it. Some of the stuff she wrote, I wasn't convinced of just because of me, like me being, like you said, yelling at the screen, like, you know.
Yeah, but she did a good job of making you visualize.
Yeah, she did. So like I said, now that we're bantering about this, and getting a different perspective. Yeah, it probably would. It probably might be turned into a movie. This book was so popular.
Yeah, it could be. It'd be interesting to watch.
It is. So, we enjoyed this book. Like I said, it helps when you get a different perspective because I had my cynical thoughts, but now that we're bantering about it and I'm hearing Miss Yvonne's perspective and she's bringing to light things that I didn't think about or consider, even though we read the same book, we're interpreting different things differently. It really helps to me to give a new appreciation for this book and the characters in the book. So yeah, I am going to give this book a thumbs up for sure.
I give it a thumbs up as well. And that's why this is so great, reading a book with somebody else, or maybe 2 or 3 people, and all of you having your different opinions about the book. Everybody brings something different into the conversation.
It does. So the Lost Apothecary is available for checkout at the Broadview Public Library District. We have this as a book. We also have it as an ebook, as media on demand, and an audiobook as media on demand. So with your Broadview Public Library card, if you are interested in reading this and disputing our opinions or agreeing with us, if you've read the book and you like the book, if you didn't like the book, we'd love comment below and let us know. But yeah, if you want to read the book, by all means, come to the Broadview Public Library. Check the book out with your Broadview Public Library card and let us know what you think about the Lost Apothecary. All right, so we are going to be attempting to read for our next book banter, The Midnight Library by Matt Haig, for our next book banter. This is an attempt. So we're pretty good about reading what we say we're going to read next. So just a disclaimer, we might not read this next, but we are going to attempt to read this next. We might not read this just because of the logistics of getting the book. This book is so popular.
It is checked out all over the place.
It has
But
a lot
when
of.
I read the summary of it, I just
Yeah.
thought it was a great book to read. So if we do not read this book this time, we definitely will
We
read
will
it at
banter.
one of our book banters.
Yes.
But we will keep you informed to let you know if we
But
change
yeah,
it.
this book is so super popular. Everybody wants it. So we're definitely going to banter about it. We might not banter about it next month, but we will banter about it because it's such a popular book right now.
I
It's
can't
such a
wait to
hot
read it,
book.
really.
Everybody's reading it. And we definitely, of course, it's the Midnight Library. We're
Plus, we're the
librarians
librarians, so
at
that's
a
what makes
library.
it more.
So the title alone,
Made me want to read it. When I saw the title, I'm like,
Right.
oh,
It's
librarians.
probably why it's so popular, because every librarian on the planet is probably wanting to read this book because of the title alone.
Right.
So yeah, so we are probably not going to be the only ones bantering about this book and talking about it because it's so popular. I'm sure by the time we read it, if we don't read it right away, there'll be other videos and YouTube. So we can't wait to watch other people's reviews and listen to them bantering and talking about this awesome book, that The Midnight Library. So
if you get a chance, check it out, read it, join us for our book banter when we banter it, and we can discuss it.
yeah, we'll have it posted on our Facebook page and on our website, which there'll be links below in the description for the Broadview Library's Facebook and the website. So you can catch up and look at past book banters. We can recommend books you want us to banter about.
Drop us a line, let us know.
And all that good stuff. So thank you for joining us for another book banter. And we look forward to bantering with you again soon.
Bye.
Bye.
So, enjoy it. I guess because I get to talk